Well, I'm sorry, it's been a spell since we've posted up a video on the YouTube channel, and I do apologize. Life has gotten in the way, and you guys, I'm pretty well sure, understand that. Um, what is with these glasses and these lights? Well, anyway, I want to go over a couple of things over the next few minutes. One is going to be this MacBook Pro M1. I've had it for a little bit over a year, and I want to give you kind of a review. There's plenty of them out there, but I want to give you my kind of take on it here, and talk about these things. All right, it's kind of a cool little gadget. If you've got a MacBook or a Mac Mini and need more ports, you're going to need something like this to help you out, and I want to give you a little bit of a review on it. It's a pretty cool little deal, and it matches the Mac. And we'll. Did I just break this? So a year ago, I bought this MacBook Pro. It's not the top of the line MacBook Pro, but it's not the bottom of the line either. And reading off of the hardware overview, it's an 18.2. It has the M1 Max chip. It has 10 cores, 8 performance and 2 efficiency cores, 32 gigabytes of RAM. So no slouch. But not one of the top of the line ones. And in fact, if you've read any of the reviews from notable people on YouTube, you'll find that they're saying that this is probably the best bang for the buck. Now, what are the issues that I've run into? I mean, on the good side, it boots up fast. It runs quite a while. Without being plugged in, even using Resolve or photo editing or some stuff that's going to really demand core usage. It really is outstanding in that area. But one of the issues it has that's very troubling is its memory swapping. Now, if you remember, Apple had talked about how they were going to use this super speed memory to supplement the RAM and swap back and forth very quickly. They're also going to share that RAM with video. And I'll have to tell you, in my experience, it hasn't been working very well. Now, this is the latest version of Mac's OS, the latest version of something, Resolve 18.1.1 is on here. And there are times, many times, when you get the spinning beach ball, when it's got to stop and figure stuff out. And sometimes it can take 2 or 3 minutes before you ever get it back again. And you could open up Activity Monitor and see what it's doing. And it's the I/O between the memory, which doesn't show you everything, of course, because this is, their secret mix under the hood. But it's very annoying. Throttling. When things get hot, this thing slows down. Now, I've even put a third-party fan control software on here, TG fan control, which really helps, by the way, and I can custom set those configurations. That has helped. I use a cooler underneath it, a cooling fan underneath it. That too has provided a great deal of relief for this. So it throttles far less than what it ever did before, but it still jumps into throttling when you're doing big renders. And some of the throttling is pretty severe. Now for another big one. This one is inexcusable. As you know, virtually everything inside of this computer is Apple proprietary. They're no longer having AMD or the various video cards supply the chips for them as they did in the Intel machines. It's all their stuff. Personal opinion on my part, they should let the people who do video cards provide them with what they need, not reinvent the wheel. And here is why. I have a BenQ monitor that has a 1-to-1 ratio, like many other Flanders and the Scientifics and stuff all have 1-to-1 output. So you get a pixel for pixel representation of the image that you're color correcting or you're working on, which is very, very nice. But understand an important point here. A monitor is a passive device. If you have a 4K monitor and you throw 2550 or 2540 or 1080p at it, it will either take that and make it 4K, or you can put it in 1:1 mode and it'll show you that 1080p image inside of your monitor, so you're not seeing something blown up. All right, my monitor is the same way. And I had months worth of back and forth with BenQ about this. And what they finally said is, this is an Apple problem, and here is why. The HDMI port, or DV port, whatever you want to come off of, a DP port, whatever we want to come off of these with, is putting out a signal that you can go into preferences and reset. So, and let's just say we want to set it to 1080p. What the computer should be putting out is a 1080p image. Now, depending on the monitor you have a cheaper monitor, it may just blow it up to its full size, whatever the resolution of that monitor is. And it kind of looks like what a JPEG looks like when you got a small one, you blow it up really big. All right, it gets ugly. If you have a 1:1 monitor, it should resize it down to that 1080p. Not so on the Mac. Because what the Mac is putting out may be 1080p, but it wraps it in its full resolution output. In other words, whatever the output your Mac has as a full resolution output for this monitor, or the monitor you're sending it to, it sends that 1080 out wrapped in that. You never get a 1:1 ratio. All right? That is a serious Mac problem. Now, number two is that you can go in and put odd custom sizes in here. So let's say I want to make it not 1080, but 1079, all right, by 720 or 1280 or whatever, whatever size you want to make, but I want to make it a little bit different, a couple of pixels off, just to throw it for a loop. Mac doesn't resize the image. It crops it. All right. So I got a 1080p image. I want to put it out at 720p. It will crop, center crop that 1080 and put that image out. That's inexcusable. It should not do that. All right. That's what will show up on your monitor. So how do I fool it? And this is what I'm called fooling what's going on. Let's say I'm in Resolve, or I'm in Assimilate Scratch. I will go and set the video output much smaller. So if I'm working, let's say, with a 1080 project, I don't set the video output to 1080p. I'll set it out to 720p. And with the messed up output of the Mac, it will make it somewhere in between. It's closer to 1080 than it is 720, and the image looks a whole lot better, and it's not cropped. Apple, serious problem here. Now, is there a box I can put in between here to do that? Don't know. I have to go look up something on Blackmagic. If somebody out there knows this configuration because of this, that we can please share it in the comments below so we can kind of work through this. And maybe it's out on forums and I haven't found it yet. But it's really frustrating, and it's a really evil, wicked, bad thing to run into when you have a client sitting there and you go, that doesn't look very good. There may be a monitor that will force it into a 1:1 ratio, but BenQs and most monitors out there will take what they're given. They're passive devices. They're not active devices. They will not force it into it. And how could they? How could they force it into a 1080p if what they're getting is 2500 or 3400, 4K? Make sense? All right. And another issue that needs to be looked at on these MacBooks is the fact that there's a problem with the HDMI out. And it'll put out the video, but it won't put out sound. Now, although you can go into the Mac and you can set that audio setting to put it out through the headphone jack or the Mac speakers or auxiliary out, you can also set it to go through the HDMI port, and it sits there and the wheels just spin and nothing happens. It won't put out audio. So this is a bit of a problem. Now, there's been several updates. I've just got one today and I haven't checked it. Most of them are security updates, but this is huge if you want to plug this in and show a client something on a monitor and you don't have any audio coming out of the HDMI port. It tries, but it can't do it. That's pretty significant. So, do I like the MacBook Pro M1? Yeah, I do. Not so much for hardcore professional work. You're a photographer, graphic designer, great. But if you've got to do some serious color correction in a real professional environment, I think those that have got it set up have probably found some issues. Or you've solved the issues by saying, well, geez, I'll just get rid of my 2K monitor and get a 4K monitor and work with that. Again, that's kind of Apple's assumption, isn't it? They took away our DVD players. For a while, they took away headphone jacks and phones and on it because they said, you don't need those anymore, but we do. So why is Apple telling us what we need and not giving us what we really need? And that is true video output. Now, if I'm wrong in this, if I'm up in the night, please make comments, correct me, share your information. But this is what I'm running into, and I'm saying this is a bit of a problem. I didn't break this. All right, it's meant to come apart. The company is called Hyper, and they're kind of an obscure company. I stumbled on this totally by accident. If you have an M1, you have a new laptop from Apple, you know that you need to have some sort of breakout box. And they're a plethora. The first ones didn't work well. They didn't put out 4K like they said. They said they would support 2 4K monitors. They wouldn't. Some said 3. They'd do 2. Normal startup pains. Well, there's some good ones out there right now. But I stumbled onto this one and I thought I'd give it a try. All right. Its design is both a blessing and a curse, but it is a little bit ingenious. All right. Because of its design here, it goes underneath your laptop, so your laptop can set at an angle. All right. It's got a nice little non-skid pad here. These 2 connectors on this end go into the 2 left side, all right, Thunderbolt connectors. And this end can go into the one that's on the right-hand side of the computer. Or let's say you don't want to take this with you, but you need to connect to an HDMI monitor or one of the 2 outputs. You can take this off. It just holds on with a magnet. You can plug that in, and now we have an HDMI and a display port out as a little dongle. Very cool, but no other extra connectors because it doesn't use any of the other ones on the computer. But if you have them both together, this uses all of your connectors. And what does it give you? All right, so you get 1, 2, 3 video outs. This will put out 4K solid to at least 2 monitors. And it'll put out 2K to the 3rd monitor. All right. It has a gigabit Ethernet, which works really well, by the way. It has 10 gigabit USB connectors, a 5 and 2 5s. It has a SD and a micro and an SD slot on the side, so that gives you an extra one here. You've got one on your computer. You can load up a lot of camera cards if you're doing offloading. It says, this draws its power off of the Mac. It says that it's able to pass a good chunk of that 60 some odd watts of power for your power supply on. I will say that is not the case. So I plugged in 3 devices that needed to be powered. And in one of them, USB 3 ports, I put in a hub with 3 ports on it. Now, was not coming anywhere close to the amount of power that all of that needed. This shut down. I mean, it shut down to like no video out. It shut off. Didn't just shut off the power to those ports. And so you had to unplug it, plug it back in, it would reboot and come back again. So it'll handle some power output, but it doesn't seem to handle what they advertise for the amount of power that it should. And that's fine, all right? And knowing that, you can sure work around it. I have a set of tangent panels, the full set of elements. I have a powered USB hub. So those 4 or 5 panels plug into that, and that plugs into here. And there's no power being drawn from here for those panels, all right? So you have to kind of think about not taking a lot of power from here to power your USB devices as you go along. I've had this ever since I've had this laptop. It has been flawless. There's no way of upgrading software on it. They do have, I think if I recall, a newer version. They've kind of expanded. It's a very slick design, and it looks very clean. I am noticing because of this end here where these come right up and clip in to those ports on the side, that this is becoming a little twitchy. You got to make sure it's seated perfectly or it doesn't work. You can't just have one plugged in. It needs both of them plugged in. But I don't do anything special to it. I just throw it in my bag, take it with me wherever I need to go, and it's held up so far. Now, what are the irritations here? When this sits underneath your laptop, the only way to get to the cables is underneath your laptop here on this back side. Really, really inconvenient, because when you look at it, it's upside down. You know, had they printed everything the other way around, it'd have been a little nicer. Could you put this way and plug it into your laptop and have it out to the side as a bar? Yes, you can. And I've kind of taken to doing that. It's not as neat cable management wise. If you have it here, all your cables come nicely out the back. But this is quite annoying to have to reach around the back and figure out what's there, especially if you have other monitors and stuff on your table and your color panel and stuff like that. It can be a real pain to get to these. So if you're plugging in and plugging out stuff, changing cards, SD cards and micro SD cards a lot, you might want to look at a different manufacturer's one. Maybe it's a vertical tower with easy accessible ports. But the company is Hyper. I'll have a link to it down below. I give it a pretty good rating, because other than the power output, it does what's advertised on the bottle on the box. Okay. So that wraps it up for this episode. Short and sweet, hopefully. It took a few minutes longer than I wanted to, but I wanted to let you know we're back and to kind of give you a little bit of a look at this and look at this product that I've been banging on for a year. And a lot of people don't know about that Hyper. Might be something that might meet a need for you. Hope to see you on set someday.